Hello YouTubers out there, this is Jerry at the Movies. So today I want to briefly discuss a comment made by Martin Scorsese. Of course, many of you know was the director of Goodfellas, Taxi Driver, The Aviator, Gangs of New York, etc. And his last film was Hugo, which came out in late 2011. And he made a comment, or at least he didn't make it directly, I believe it was his editor, longtime editor, Thelma Schoonmaker, who said that Scorsese has decided to switch to digital. He will not be shooting on film anymore. Now apparently he had already worked digitally on Hugo, which actually I was unaware of. And having seen the film, aside from some of the CGI effects, there was very little in it that seemed digital to me. Digital means, of course, digital video. And even more recently, I think in February of this year, Peter Jackson, who's known for the Lord of the Rings trilogy and has his upcoming The Hobbit coming out in December of 2012, has shot The Hobbit on digital video and has worked at a higher frame rate, which is apparently 48 frames per second. Now, to explain this, film itself runs at 24 frames per second, and video technically is 30 frames. So, 48 frames apparently makes it look even more lifelike than imaginable. According to those who have witnessed it, they weren't crazy about this format. Again, it's a higher frame ratio than normal. But getting back to Martin Scorsese, it's very interesting, because he's been a film purist and is very much for film preservation. It's his main cause. So to learn that he, aside from the fact that he of course shot Hugo digitally, that his newest film, Wolf of Wall Street, which will star Leonardo DiCaprio, will be shot digitally, may seem odd, but that's the nature of the game nowadays, fortunate or not. I think the issue is that video is pixels and film has a higher lines of resolution, and there's mystery to it, as cinematographer Janusz-Kaminski said, who shot and lensed many of Steven Spielberg's films since Schindler's List. And he doesn't really trust video or anything digital thus far. But even Steven Spielberg shot The Adventures of Tintin digitally, not on film. But he's also a purist, so The War Horse was apparently all shot on film. So the real question is this going to be the future? And I would say it probably is, and many of you may be surprised at how many films actually have been shot on video. Just to give you a brief idea, Hugo, of course, is one. The film Slumdog-Millionaire, that came out in 2009, won the award for Best Cinematography through the Academy, and that was shot also on digital video. Curious Case of Benjamin Button by David Fincher, also shot on video. Let's see, this newest camera is called the Arriflex D20, which is, again, a high-definition video camera. High definition is the name of the game, and approximates the look of film, but of course it really isn't film. And again, the other side to this that's interesting is that, for the most part, not all theaters have switched to digital projection, at least not yet. So, since that's the case, they still show in a projector with light and shadow, you know. And so that means that films that are shot digitally have to be converted to film. There is a film negative of a digital video print. So that means that if you go to the movies and you see a film that you are unaware that was shot on video, like for example The Avengers, The Amazing Spider-Man, then you probably couldn't really tell. George Lucas, of course, did his Star Wars prequel trilogy, starting with Episode 2, and only one scene, I believe, and episode 1 on HD video. Now, what's the reason for all this is, film is expensive. The question is, how expensive really is it? Black and white film, by and large, really doesn't even exist anymore. The artist was shot in color. I think on video. I'm not entirely sure about that one. I know Avatar was shot on digital video, or for purist HD video, but nonetheless it was video. And that was converted to black and white, but it's not real black and white. It approximates it, but it's not the real thing. And so it's about cost. I mean, I can give you an example. When I attended the University of the Arts back in 1996, I took a film class, and we had to process 16mm film, roll reversal Kodak 16mm film, and make our own films on a Bolex 16mm camera. And a 2.5 minute roll costs, I'm trying to remember back then, I'm going to say it was about $10 for a 2.5 minute roll, which came in a black and yellow case from Kodak. So $10 for 2.5 minutes, and to process was an additional $15. So you're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 minutes for 2.5 minutes of film. $25 for 2.5 minutes of film. For a 2.5 minute roll of film, $25. So that was in 1996. So now, who knows? But Kodak is also virtually bankrupt. Nobody really seems to use still cameras anymore. I'm sure some people do, but for the most part, it's disappearing. And a lot of people have switched to digital. There's digital cable, there's digital cameras, there's digital camcorders. Cell phones can take digital pictures and digital video. It's just insane. It's all virtually digital, and it means that there's an immediacy to it. It just shows up just like that. You don't have to do a whole lot to make it happen. So what does one do with that? And I'm just seeing it right now. Slumdog-Millionaire was in fact the first movie shot mainly in digital to get the Academy Award for Best Cinematography, so I was correct the first time. So what do you do with this? You know, I really don't know. I think it's the wave of the future. Is it a good future? I don't know. There's something more human about film. It's like, you know, mono versus stereo. Binaural stereo versus CDs, let's say. And I think there is a preference for mono sound and stereophonic sound, which these things don't even exist anymore. So everything is practically digital, but it's compressed, you know, and it's pixelized and this and that and the other. So the fact that Scorsese is switching, well, he could still make a good film. The medium is different. It's a different medium, no matter what anyone says. The characteristics of it are still the same, in a sense that you have your f-stops. You do have, you can change lenses. All the laws of making a film or shooting on film apply to shooting on video. Only the medium has changed a little. I always think back to a story, and I believe it was about Matisse, but it could have been about Toulouse-Lautrec, where they were so well known that even if they made a picture on a piece of napkin, that would be worth a lot of money, because it was Toulouse-Lautrec or it was Matisse painting it. So the medium may not matter as much as the work itself. So I don't know if you can thank the Blair Witch Project for that. That was back in 1999. And that actually was shot on video in addition to 16mm film, black and white, which a lot of people tend to forget, back in 1999. Prior to that, there are early examples of video. You can think of Dangerous Game by Abel Ferrara. There are many scenes in that picture that were shot on what looks like VHS, Super VHS camera, back when it was known as cameras and not camcorders. And that was in 1993. And trying to think of something even further back. that may have been shot on video. A lot of films actually were. I come to think of it, documentaries especially. That's always a cheaper alternative, but they're still being transferred, or they were transferred to film. So there is that additional cost. So how much are they really saving? According to the producer Rick McCallum, who produced Star Wars Episode 2, it cost somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think the figure was $16,000, maybe more, to shoot 200 hours of digital tape. I'd have to double check that to be sure, but I believe that's what I read. And that was for Star Wars Episode 2. So the cost is down. You know, but is it better? I don't know. I can't. I don't think so. I think film has a mystery. It has an appeal. That doesn't mean everything that's shot on film is brilliant. You know, there's some shitty cinematographers out there just, you know, make crappy looking movies, and you wonder, well, they may as well have shot them on video. What difference would it make? But if you tell a good story, or if there's something you want to say, and especially if you have a director who can use that medium to their advantage and still compose a shot and make it look interesting, and differences between lenses and everything else, then maybe, you know, that's not as big a deal. But until every theater is equipped with digital projection, we're going to have to assume that films still have this, anything shot on video still has an additional cost of transferring to film. So there's a film negative. And how many negatives are there in theaters? I mean, when you look at the Avengers, how many negatives went out to all these different theaters, all these processed films? So even if it's shot on video, it's still a cost. So, hey, we'll see what happens. I'm not surprised Scorsese did this. Again, I had forgotten he shot Hugo that way. I didn't see Hugo in theaters. I saw it on a widescreen TV, and so maybe you can't tell that easily. I certainly couldn't. Hey, who knows? That's the way things are going to be. So I'm not distressed over it, but I'm still hoping there's room for film. Even LPs came back, so if LPs can make a comeback and we can hear sound the way it was meant to be heard from a band, then perhaps films can still continue to be out there, shot on film. We'll see. And until then, this is Jerry the Movies, signing off.